Hello, Challenger. Today, we will discuss the main principles of creating a CV that will make you stand out to companies. Today, I have here Ivana. So she's a co-founder of Stack. She helps tech startups, scale ups, companies to grow and build a team. How are you, Ivana?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here. And we also have Lisa. Lisa is an actor and she also works for Stack building tech and commercial teams. And she works for the Irish esports industry. Hello, Lisa. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Rafael. Thanks for inviting me.
Very good. I want to make a couple of questions to you to know what exactly a developer should worry about, what they should do on their CV so they make their CV stand out for companies because nowadays, the competition, it's tough, right? Even more nowadays with recession. So that's why I invited you here to discuss what are the best practices to build a good CV. And we can start talking about LinkedIn. So do you think LinkedIn nowadays is the best place to have a developer CV? What is your opinion about that?
I think any developer should definitely have a LinkedIn. It's almost if you don't have a LinkedIn, you don't exist as a developer. In some countries, LinkedIn is not that popular because they have some other platforms like Xing, for example, in Germany. But if you look at it globally, I think every developer should have a LinkedIn. So it's very important. Also, I think that all the big companies and even startups, they are all on LinkedIn. So if you want to be seen by those companies and by like people that are hiring, you have to be at the same place that they are, right? And they are all on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And do you know if there is another platform where developers can also look for jobs?
I don't know if they could use Indeed in Ireland. In Germany, there's Zing. And I feel like maybe every country would have their own, but I'm not familiar with them. And LinkedIn is definitely the biggest and it's global. Yeah, definitely. Like LinkedIn is the biggest one, but there are some smaller ones which are not that nice to use, but they're still helpful. There's in Ireland, there is Monster and Indeed. Some developers use that, but I think LinkedIn is definitely much easier to use, more user friendly because it's like a social media almost. Like looks like uh, when you use LinkedIn, you don't feel like you are working. It's kind of like Facebook almost. Like it just looks fun. But for
And
example, other platforms, they're not really the same. You can just apply there and see the job ad and that's it. But LinkedIn is more like a social media platform. Even if you're just scrolling and reading what other people's posts and videos, I guess it's more fun.
yes, it's a lot more fun and you can also create connections, right? So do you recommend developers to connect with developers who work in the same industry they want to work on? So what is
Yeah,
your recommendation to that?
definitely to connect with as many developers that they can, even better with hiring managers. So sometimes the easiest way to get a job is if a developer just messages a hiring manager, sends him some relevant message. That's the easiest way. You literally hire yourself. It's almost like using a recruiter, like being your own recruiter.
Mm. Nowadays, I see that most of the job opportunities, the developers don't send CVs anymore, right? I see that instead of they going and searching for companies, nowadays it's the scenario kind of changed because I see there are many recruiters in the market recruiting developers. So how do you see this scenario? Do you see that nowadays it's more common recruiters reaching out to developers rather than developers sending CVs directly to companies?
I think it's a big mix, actually. We do have a lot of applicants when we put on a job post. Like, depending on the position, it will be an insane amount of applicants, but not necessarily they will be relevant for the position because a lot of people just don't read job specs and just apply for anything that has a title similar to what they want. but there are also in more specific industries inside technology, I'd say there's a lot of people that are just happy where they are, and then recruiters have to reach out to them. So I would say it's a 50-50, but also depends on the specific industry.
Interesting. And one thing that I don't understand, it doesn't make much sense to me, is that you have to have a good LinkedIn profile, and you also have to have CV document. So why the companies need to have two CVs? They have to have your LinkedIn information plus another document with your CV. Why that's the norm? It's weird to me.
Technically, they're not the same thing, and you should use them for different aspects and different occasions. So your CV is your LinkedIn is the platform that the recruiters and hiring managers will use to find you. So in your LinkedIn, you should have the description of what you're doing, the tech stack you're using, projects you're working on, not only the most recent ones, but even like the ones that from the beginning of your career, even if you have, I don't know, 10, 20 years of experience. Whereas your CV should be tailored to the position you're applying for. No hiring manager wants to get a CV with 20 years, 10 years of experience. They want to read what's relevant for the position. But then if you're applying, right, or if a recruiter is sending your CV directly to that company, they only want to read the important information. But if the recruiter or the hiring managing manager is looking for you, then all your information have to be on our LinkedIn because we don't have access to your CV. So that's why you need both.
Oh, perfect. So the idea is basically to tailor the CV document to the company exactly for the position you're applying.
Yeah. Make sure not to copy the job spec. But yeah, you should tailor it to
You
the
know,
position if you like.
sometimes, like, even if you just send a LinkedIn, some people use LinkedIn as their CV because you can always make a PDF from your LinkedIn and they just send it as a CV. Some hiring managers, they don't complain about that. They're fine with it. But usually we as recruiters, we prefer if candidates send us a proper CV, and then we can also have a look at their LinkedIn. But a lot of candidates, they're not really updated. Some people just have a name of the company and title. They don't write a lot of information on their LinkedIn. It's not like 100% updated. If it's 100% updated, I really don't mind. Is it the LinkedIn or CV? But I do prefer to see a CV sometimes. But it's
Mm,
not a, for most of the hiring managers, it won't be a big issue, but it's better to have both.
interesting. So, and what uh, type of document should we use? Should we use Word, PDF? What's better? What's the companies would uh, like the most?
I think I prefer PDFs, but usually it doesn't really matter is it a Word or PDF. But me personally, I prefer PDFs. What about you, Lisa?
Same thing. I feel like it's very personal opinion. I also prefer PDFs, but if someone sends me a Word document, it's also fine.
Okay. I know that a while ago, companies were using robots to pick some keywords. Is that still happening in the market?
The way that you search sorry, do you wanna go first? Go
Uh,
first. Go on, go on, go on.
Like most of the bigger companies, they use ATS. So they will first analyze the CV. They will look for the keywords. So you need to have a lot of relevant keywords. But we as recruiters, we don't use those ATS. We just like have a quick look at the CV and we talk to a candidate. But if you apply, let's say in Microsoft or Google, their ATS will first check uh, your CV. They will look for keywords. So, definitely a good idea to put a lot of good keywords in a CV.
Interesting.
Like,
And go ahead.
you can
Yeah.
jump in. No, I was telling to Lisa that she can jump in now.
Ah. Yeah. Let's say that we're hiring for a very specific position that only uses C#.net. That's all we need for the position, right? But you as a software engineer, you have Python, JavaScript, you have like 1,000 of other tech stacks. We need to make sure that you have what we're looking for. So we will be looking for keywords that are specific to the position we're hiring for. but not necessarily will use like some sort of robot or AI to find it. Maybe, as Ivana said, bigger companies will do that, but we'll definitely look for the keywords because we need to know that you have the experience on the things that we need you to do. And same for the big companies. Just imagine that they, like, especially corporates, they will receive like hundreds or maybe thousands of applications. And maybe you do have the experience to do what they are looking for, but you either have way too much information on your CV or it's like too generalized, or you didn't include the exact things that they are looking for. And then their robots will just miss it, or even human eye will miss it, you know?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if the file is Word or PDF. If there is a robot behind the scenes, they will be able to check the keywords, right? Because I remember that some time ago they would be able only to analyze Word documents.
Just control F, type whatever
you,
you want.
you can always change. If it's a PDF, you can change it to Word, or if it's a Word, you can change it to PDF. That's not an issue. Like takes you literally 10 seconds to do it. So
Yeah,
And
yeah,
even computers have like you just click to things and then you can just type those keyword you want.
yeah. So I would say, well, to be safe, it's better than to use Word because I think these robots, if there is a robot, it's more likely that they will be able to look into a Word document.
You
Okay,
also have to
good.
be careful with the fact that sometimes using Word, you might use fonts that other people don't have on their computer, especially if they're working with a different system. So this is one of the reasons why I prefer PDF CVs as well. I often get CVs from candidates that are on Word and they don't open like that on my computer. So I have to adapt the font, or sometimes it just misses some information because I don't have that font on my laptop.
Okay. So basically just use Arial, right? Just use the most basic font.
Area black and you're fine.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
comic fonts.
Yeah, yeah. No. And what's the size of the font? Like 12 points should be okay?
12's good, but of course you should make titles bigger and maybe like bold or italic.
Mhm. Perfect. So let's analyze then some CVs. I have two CVs here from two mentees of mine. We can have a look at them. Should we get started? Okay, so I will share here my screen. Can you see my screen? Great. So this is the profile of Franco. Franco is a senior software engineer. He has a very nice background picture here. Very nice picture, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm going to ask your opinions. Uh, and I think this is pretty good. So I'd like to know what is your opinion about that.
I like the picture. Okay, go you first, please.
Go on, go on.
I like the picture. I like that he says he's a senior engineer focusing on backend, creating APIs, focus on security, microservices, Java, Spring Boot. So when I look at that profile, I see, okay, he's a backend engineer, works a lot with Java, Spring Boot in security sector. That's great, I think.
It gives like the subcategories of what he does as a software engineer. So I think it's useful to have a headline like that.
Yeah, what I like in his profile as well is that it's very focused. So you can see right away that he doesn't have a shallow knowledge. He's a specialist in Java and backend microservices.
You would actually see that on his about, maybe, or then on the description of his positions. By his headline, we know that maybe those are like the thing he focuses on, but we don't know if he does more than that or only that so far. We'd have to read the rest to understand this.
Perfect. So let's now go to the about section. So I told him to write more details, maybe to add his highlights. So what is your opinion about his about section?
Okay, he's
Mhm.
saying experienced software engineer. It would probably be good if, like experience. What does it mean? You know, you can you're a software engineer with this many years of experience, it's a little bit more specific. If you just say experience, for someone experience is 2 years, for
Need to
someone.
start right after Ivana. Over 10 years of experience.
I think it's good to say how many years or
Right away.
yeah, or to say a little bit more specific you are, better. Okay, he's saying a strong background in API development and digital banking solutions. Okay. In the second sentence, he's saying how many years. So let's ignore what I first said. Over 10 years of experience in creating software solutions to enhance security. Yeah, I would maybe just add technologies, like his main technologies. And if he's senior, let's see if he's senior, I would probably mention that there already.
Yeah, he mentioned it here. Do you think it's useful to mention here again?
I would change maybe word experience for the senior.
Yeah. I actually think that his about is not enough. It's basically the same as his headline, but with more words. It doesn't give us more information. Like the only new information I learned from it is that he has over 10 years of experience. It doesn't tell me more about the tech stacks he uses. It doesn't tell me about projects that he worked on. It doesn't tell me about his strengths or projects that he would like work on. And also, it doesn't show anything about his personality. Some hiring managers would want to see a little bit more about who he is as a person there to see if there is some sort of culture fit even before talking to him. So his about should be a brief description of who he is, like as a software engineer as well, but it should have something that shows who he is as a person. And he could maybe even include some hobbies that are relevant to the industry he works at.
Interesting. So when you mention about his personal side, what could it be? It's like he could write his hobbies, what he likes to do, but obviously the focus is to talk about his experience, right? So I would guess that he has to write first about his experience, and then he talks a little bit about his personal preferences as well.
Look, as a software engineer, he's not going to write that he likes fishing, for example, right?
Yes.
But if on a personal level, he's working on a project, I don't know, he really likes games and he decided to learn Unity to start doing VR games as a hobby, put it there. Anything that is relevant to him as a software engineer or to the specific industry he works for. So he works for banking and maybe he decided to take an economics course for some reason, put it there. Don't mention things that are completely irrelevant to the industry, but do mention if there are things that are interesting. So sometimes we work with companies that, for example, they work on a very technical product, and because of that, they really like to hire candidates who are very geek or like very nerdy. So if I see on the about the person really likes video games, really like VRs, has a personal project that they're developing, I don't know, an RPG, that's a bonus. It's not what will get this person hired because, of course, we need to know about their experience as a developer, the achievements, KPIs, tech stack, and maybe even the level that they like. For example, let's say that he has like a higher level with Java, like he's on 10 out of 10, and then I don't know, he has AWS and it is a 5 out of 10. It's nice to know a little bit about that, but it's a mix and it could count. And a lot of positions they will have musts and then they will also have bonuses. If they do see someone who has like all the musts and none of the bonuses, against someone who has a little bit of bonuses as well and all of the musts, they will go with the latter other than the former.
Oh, makes sense. So in his case, Franco likes to run. Do you think that would be relevant to add that he likes to run? He likes the challenge of running a marathon, for example.
I think it's always a good idea to write whatever you like to do on the side in your personal life, because you never know if the hiring manager is maybe also into running and into marathons, and that can be their connecting point. Even Lisa, you mentioned if someone is a fisherman, you always say like at the end, a passionate fisherman. To me, it's funny, and I find out something about his personal life. I wouldn't mind mentioning something like that. I think it's fun. Like, for example, If someone is into gym and they write that they're like passionate about like fitness and gym, I always think, oh, that's really cool, because you never know what the hiring manager is into. Maybe they will be the same and they'll think, oh, this guy is actually like, I would love to have someone like this in the team.
That
Definitely,
makes
whatever
sense.
you're proud of, whatever you're proud of in your personal life, just write it down, make it sound funny, show your personality, and
Yeah, and
But
maybe if you can link that to something that would be relevant. So, for example, you said he likes the challenge to run, and then he can write about how much he likes challenges. That might make him stand out over someone who doesn't mention anything about liking challenges, for example.
sorry to jump in. Some hiring managers, they really look for other things apart from just the job. So they see, okay, did this person travel? What other things apart from work are they into? So all these things, they can help hiring managers make their decision.
This is
Even
also
if you were playing sport on a professional level or not, it doesn't even have to be professional level, but something apart from work and just studying, it could be very beneficial.
It could also be something that instead of writing so much about your personal preferences or hobby on your abouts, that you could have posts that you wrote or that you shared. Some people will look at that as well. So if you have, I don't know, he doesn't have that much reading about himself. So let's say he posted he likes the challenge of running a marathon because I don't know, he likes challenges. And then on his activities, we see posts about like marathons that he ran, or oh, he went to this place to run that marathon. And then we also see like anything else that might show us a little bit more about him or his personality. It could be a plus. It could also not. Like it will also, of course, depend on the hiring manager. There are hiring managers that will look at the fact that he shared, I don't know, a joke, and they will say, I know, I would like someone more professional. But then at the same time, it also tells you about the environment you'd be working on. And I feel like you should have your LinkedIn, sorry, on a way that shows who you are, because then you will get opportunities that are aligned with you and what you would want to do, if that makes sense.
yeah, that makes sense. So how many lines would you suggest to have in the about section?
Be honest, in my opinion, majority should be related to work, but more the better. There is a maximum amount of letters that you can put in. I would like, if I have something relevant to say, I would just write it down, because anyways, when you just have a look at about session, it's only going to show you first 3 or 4 rows. Then when you click on more, then you will be able to see the whole thing. But I don't think you can see the whole thing when you're just scrolling LinkedIn. You need to click on about session to see the
Yeah.
whole version.
I'd say that maybe something in between, not use the maximum limit, because for me, for example, if I have to read a lot of things, I won't. I
Yeah.
will literally just read what's relevant to me and to my eyes. Or sometimes I will look for information in other places before going back to that huge text. Because you also have to think that, yes, you should tell us about yourself and we need to understand who you are and what you do. But at the same time, we have like hundreds of profiles to look every day.
Exactly.
But the thing is, like, if you look at the profile, you will only see 4 rows. So if you're interested to read more, you need to click on the about section to see everything. Like, for example, my about section is huge, but if you only go to my profile, you will only see 4 rows. You won't see the whole thing. So I think it's good to have more. And if someone is interested, they will click and read. At least, but it's very personal. It depends. It
Yeah.
depends
So
on.
go ahead, Ivana. Sorry.
Um, I think it's very subjective, so it depends on each person.
Yeah. So in my case, here, for example, my about section uh, is not so short and you have to click see more. So in my case, I added career highlights. Do you think that's a good idea for a CV?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. For both CV and LinkedIn profile, yes.
Interesting. But here, as you suggested, it should be good for me in my case to add some personal activities of mine as well, right?
Yeah, I think
In a
it's a
way, go on. Sorry.
I think there's no harm in doing it. It all depends on you if you want, but I have it for my profile. I like to read about other people's, side activities or whatever hobbies, but not everyone likes to share that. So it really depends on each candidate.
Yeah,
Mm.
you can even put like your YouTube channel there. You know, it
Yeah,
already shows
absolutely.
us that like you like to do videos. You're comfortable in front of a camera, so you wouldn't maybe like it would be okay to do a presentation for like mentees or like for someone in the company. And then if the person wants to see how you talk and how articulate you are before even interviewing you, could be a bonus, you know?
Awesome. Yep. Very good suggestion. And okay, so in his case, he should add maybe career highlights as well, right? And add some personal experiences. Could be the marathon, and maybe he could talk about the marathon as he likes challenge, right? And that would help him stand out. And regarding career highlights, would you recommend using quantitative impacts they do in the companies? Because that's honestly that's quite difficult to measure because sometimes you create a component and yes, it will increase productivity from developers, but you don't know exactly how much percent that productivity would increase. So kind of, it's not a very exact number that
If it's
bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, even if it's not exact, I think a lot of the hiring managers love to see numbers. They want to see your achievements and how do you usually uh, show your achievements. It's always through KPIs and numbers. So you need to speak about some numbers or what was the scale of the project, how many users the project had, just so they see, okay, what was this developer working on? Like, how big was this? Or definitely, like, if you improve the productivity by how much percent, it's good to mention some number. Like, even if you're not 100% sure, is it like, I don't know, 30% or 32, just to have something. Like a lot of recruiters and hiring managers, they love numbers.
Just don't like make up numbers, you know, if you need to like you don't know if it's 30 or 32%, for example, you can put 30 because it's close enough. Just don't come up with a number out of nowhere because if the information is there, someone might ask you at some point in an interview.
Yeah, they might say, oh, so why did you choose 30% or whatever number? And then you have to know the answer.
They
Yeah.
would be like, how do you know that you improved that by 32%? You know, and then how are you going to explain if you came up with them or from nowhere?
Like ideally, you should know the number from, and you should ask your head of product or product manager to tell you, and then you can use the number. But maybe don't use it if you don't have it, but try to find out, and then you can use
If you don't have it, you can use other kind of quantitative things. So I worked on this project for X amount of months or years, or the project had this positive impact, not necessarily a number, this positive impact in whatever thing in the company. Just show us what you're doing and the positive impacts that it had, you know, or if maybe something you did like it had a good impact, but now you realize it could have been better, you can add that as well. Like, oh, nowadays I would change this and that. Just again, make sure it's not like super long because no one will have the time to sit down and read everything, you know.
it.
Perfect.
Definitely what I like to see is if what was the scale, like how many users, how many instances, if they reduce the time of dealing with something mentioned, for how much did you reduce the time? Like things like that. Things, if you look at the product from business perspective, what was the benefit of your work?
You
Mm,
can also detail if the project was more like on the low level side, high level, a mix of both, because some companies will be looking for engineers that can do low level coding only or high level.
perfect. So basically, the main principle is to try as much as possible to find an exact number, and well, not an exact number, but something where a number, a quantitative number from your achievement, where you can explain why of this number. Otherwise, you might be caught by surprise in the interview, and they might ask, okay, so why this number? And if you don't have the answer, then obviously it won't be good for you.
I think this is especially relevant if you interview for startups or scale ups. They usually like people who understand the business side. So candidates that not just they don't just code, but they also understand the business impact of their work, like business impact of coding or whatever. I think in bigger companies sometimes it's not so relevant because you're more like a part of a machine, you're part of a team. But in smaller companies, uh, usually they will look for product engineers. So they will want someone who understands the business impact. So this is more relevant for, I think, product companies, startups, scale ups. If
Mm,
you're in Amazon, I guess it's still good to have it, but in product companies, it's more important.
perfect. Anything to add, Lisa?
No, I think it's good. Just add your achievements, even if you have achievements on yours that you had, that you got the Java Challenger Awards in 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
Add those kind of achievements. They're nice for Franco's case. If he ever won a marathon or ran a really impressive long marathon, put it there.
Okay, perfect. And here he also described his experience. And one thing that I like is that he included his milestones, his achievements inside the company, right? So from software engineer 3, he went to senior software engineer. And let's see everything here. Yeah, he included the details in bullet points. So what are your thoughts about, let's start from here. Software
Yeah.
engineer 3.
I think he did a great job in explaining like how he was getting promotions within one role. He described the projects. He focused even on some achievements. He mentioned some numbers as well. You see, like he mentioned, resulted in a 40% reduction in operational costs. That's exactly what we were talking about. So I think he did a great job with explaining this past role in Scotiabank. Um, he mentioned the skills below. Yeah, I think he did a great job with this one.
Yeah, I also think it's really good. Maybe on a personal level, I would add specifically the tech stack that he used for each project, because there he added like plus 10 things, right? He might have used all of them for every single project, or he might have used different ones for different projects. I like the idea of seeing it specified
Yeah, but I think in that case, he used all of those technologies for one project. It seems it's a
for all of the
microservice,
projects.
Java, Spring. Yeah,
I think this
I
is
think,
fine. Like, probably in all his roles, he focus was Java, Spring, Kubernetes, Docker.
RESTful.
That,
Mm,
that's all very standard. So I think that's fine.
okay.
yeah, what about here?
Same thing, like he describes the projects he worked on. He again gives us numbers like reduced processing time by 50%. I personally really like that he separated everything in bullet points because it just makes it so easy to read. And I think he also included keywords that are relevant to his industry and to his position, right? So it makes very clear what he's doing and for what kind of roles he could be useful.
Good job, Franco.
Okay, so the only thing he has to be aware is, for example, if the interviewer says, okay, so you reduced the processing time by 50%, can you explain to me this number? Then he has to have an answer on top of his mind, right?
He could say that it's something, I don't know, he had like a meeting where the head of products gave them that number and showed them the graphs or something. If he has a more specific answer, that's great. But if he doesn't have like from the top of his mind, maybe he could even say, "Oh, I don't know if it's doable. I can show you the graphs." Or, "Yeah, we had a meeting where they gave us this information and it went from this to this." Of course, he doesn't have to detail everything, but he should know where this number came from.
Perfect. Okay, and here he has more information. Oh, there's a typo here, but it's just something minor. So what are your thoughts about this specification?
So he is mentioning data manager. Maybe he should. So he was a senior Java developer, but then he says data manager. Maybe he should mention some like data relevant technologies. Maybe if you could click this +6 skills, what does it say? Yeah, I don't see much data related things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just be curious why was he a data manager?
And was he like a data manager or a senior Java developer?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Maybe I'm using it, but just if he can explain why was he a data manager? What did they do related to data and with what technologies?
And align the title.
Yeah. Very good. Here, well, here we don't have any detail. Do you think that's not good? We should include always details in every position.
Always
I
better to update every single role. So what he did for the first role to do
Perfect.
for every single one,
Yeah.
you know?
But you should have from the past ones as well, because maybe it will show that you worked on similar projects from like your more recent company. So they will say, oh, he has like really strong experience in this kind of project, or will show like a bigger variety of things that he worked on. So you should have the description of previous roles as well on your LinkedIn. And then on your CV, you will tailor to the position you're applying for.
Perfect. Should they be as detailed as, oh, sorry. Should they be as detailed as this one, for example?
I mean, in ideal scenario, yes, but most of the people don't do it.
He doesn't have access to this information anymore either. So ideally, he should have updated that back then. But if he isn't able to, just give us a description of what he was doing at those previous companies.
For example, if I have to hire Franco, I would have enough information just from looking at the last role, but it's always better to have completely updates in LinkedIn because then it's like 100% update. But even if I just look at the last role, I would know that I can send him for any Java role, especially in some big financial institution, because
And
it's the
it's
most.
also gone.
No, no, you jump in.
No, I was just going to say, in his case specifically, it is very clear what he's been doing and the kind of experience he has, because he's been on the same company and doing like similar things for 4 years. But if it's someone that jumps from company to company every year or every couple of years, then they will probably have worked with very different kind of products and softwares and projects. So you will want to see more from their background. Whereas if they're like in the same company for a very long time, the most recent experience already tells you enough.
So here, for example, if he has a brief description in all of those positions, it would be okay. It wouldn't be a deal breaker, for example.
Same brief description as he has for the senior Java developer slash data manager would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, obviously he has to fix that, has to explain what is data manager exactly, but he should put some information on those as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because he has a lot more experience. So he started in 2008.
Yeah, just write
So
something short about what you did in the previous companies.
cool. Um, for certifications, well, only things that are relevant for a software engineer, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's okay to leave some Udemy courses or, you know,
I mean, more you have, better.
Yeah. If you got a certification, like a credential for something, show it on your LinkedIn.
yeah, well, it's a bit old, his certifications from Java 6, more than 10 years ago, but still it's a pretty strong certification.
Yeah. If it's still valid, it should be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, should be valid. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. So what about skills? Do you think it's useful to leave old technologies or we should keep only technologies that are relevant to the market nowadays?
You should keep the technology that are relevant and that he feels comfortable to work with. So, for example, a lot of the time we work on a Python role. Someone puts Python, but they work with Python in university and they are not comfortable to work with Python now. So it's just, it increases the chance of sending an irrelevant message to the candidate. Because if he doesn't want to interview for Python jobs, he might receive a Python opportunity in the inbox just because Python is within his skills. Because, some recruiters, they will see Python and they'll just send him a message. They won't really research his whole profile, so he will receive some irrelevant messages. So they should keep only skills that they feel comfortable with, that they have experience with. And let's say if you're looking for a Java role and you work with Python only, you just learned about it in university, then you shouldn't really put it. But if you actually work with Python and you think if someone, let's say, there's a lot of companies that are looking for generalists. So they look for people who work with Java, with Python, with few different technologies. Then it's good to have it. But you need to feel comfortable that you can still work with it. Then keep it. But if you don't feel comfortable working with it, then don't keep it.
So
Especially
what?
oh,
Go ahead, Lisa.
sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. So because your LinkedIn is supposed to be where you show all your information, it should be there. Again, as Ivana said, if you're comfortable using it. If you used it many years ago, you don't use it anymore, you don't feel comfortable using it, take it from your LinkedIn.
Okay. So what is in this case scenario where a developer is working with Python and he wants to move to Java, for example? So what should he do in this situation? Should he include Java or uh, because if he never works with Java, like it's gonna be like he doesn't have experience in the market with Java, even though he might know about Java outside of work, he doesn't have a market experience with Java. In that context, it would be useful to have Java in the skills.
If you
I
want to
wouldn't put it in the
Java role,
skills. Sorry.
yeah,
I, I wouldn't put it in the skills. I would write about that on my about.
yeah. Or
So basically, go ahead.
you should work maybe on some side projects with Java. I mean, if he wants to work with Java, he needs to know about Java. So probably he already works on some side projects with Java, so he can mention it, but definitely mention it also in about session that you're looking to move into a Java role, so the recruiters know.
Okay. But in that case, if he has a project on GitHub, it should be fine to add here, right, as a skill, right?
I'm kind of into minds to answer to that because let's say that he's a senior software engineer and under his skills he has Java and he has nothing else written about it on his profile. I will just assume that he's a really good Java developer, right? And then I'll interview him and then he tells me, "Oh no, I'm actually just starting working with Java and I needed someone with 6 years of experience." So I would write on my about. Like I just studied Java or I just got my certification and I'm looking into moving to a Java role because we will be looking for keywords again and the keyword will be there anyway.
But it's also not really common that that happens. I actually
Yeah.
almost never had a situation like that. Like if someone works with Ruby or Python for 10 years, they don't usually move to Java. I feel like Java developers, if they work with Java, they stick with Java, or Python people. Okay, for Python, it's a little bit different. Sometimes they will work with Ruby, with Node.js, JavaScript, but like, you know,
It's also hypothetical. Just to give an example, I think it would help. Last week, I was looking for software developers that have experience with Microsoft Azure. I came across this guy, had Azure like on his skills, had like certifications, etc. Gave him a call, and when we were talking, he was like, "Oh, I haven't used Azure in over 5 or 6 years. I don't know how to use it anymore." But it was there. But he doesn't know how to use it anymore. So
Oh,
why was it there? Or at least like I wouldn't put it. But then if you're looking into moving into a new industry or like a new sort of um different kind of development role, write it on your about.
makes sense. Yeah. And here in his case, like he has Docker, REST APIs, Kubernetes, which faces it's a bit old technology. I don't know if it's still relevant. Well, this is GSF. This is kind of old. It's from Java EE. You think he should keep old technologies?
Can he
I,
still use it?
I
Kind of.
I think this rich face is he can keep it, like it doesn't make much difference. Um, for me, like for example, if I look at this profile and I'm working on a Java role, the most important for me will be Java, some Java frameworks like Spring Boot or Hibernate or Micronaut or Quarkus, whatever you worked with, any Java framework, um, Kubernetes, Docker.
And at the
These
same time,
those
like,
will be the most relevant. And of course, if you worked across the full stack, then some front end techno frameworks as well.
but if it's not something like it's something that he can still use it, maybe it's not that relevant for the market, but he's still comfortable using it, leave it there. There's no harm in having it. There is only harm if it's there, but he can't do it anymore.
There is no harm if you have more things that you're comfortable with than if you don't have, like if you have 100 things that you can use, keep it there. But the most important will be this, what I mentioned. Like if you're looking for a Java role, you should always on top have Java, Spring Boot, Kubernetes, Docker, microservices. Those are the most important.
And that's
Kafka.
why about you also specify which one are the one like you use the most or which ones are like you're an expert in. And I feel like the endorsements also help a lot on that because like I would highly recommend that people ask for their coworkers or managers to give them the endorsements because then like he will have, I don't know, 30 different frameworks that he works with, tech stack that he works with. But then you're going to see that he has 5, 10 endorsements on Java. You know that that's his strong one.
Mm, makes sense. So asking for people to endorse him would be a good idea.
Yeah, I would ask for people to endorse you on the things you're like big expert on or things that you worked on a project with that person. But if you want to highlight something that you are actually really good at, the endorsement could help.
So in that case, I think it's not beneficial to keep so many skills because if someone goes to his profile, it's more difficult to choose here what to endorse here.
You can just ask people, right? You can just go, "Oh, look, I worked with you on a project that I used Java and Spring Boot. Can you just endorse me for those two?"
Could be, yeah, could be a direct. But for example, if someone goes to his profile, like a person has to choose between 60 skills. I don't think people will have the patience to scroll down to 60 skills and find the
But
one.
the best is to keep the most important ones on top.
Yeah.
And
Like,
just write about that on your about, just specify there. If people don't give you an endorsement, it's on your about.
yeah,
Yeah.
Endorsement's
And
just forward thing. It's not the main one.
yeah. Endorsements are not really important because we always know that some people don't care about it. They never ask their coworkers, so it doesn't really matter. It's nice if you have it, but it doesn't really matter too much. The most important is if you have 5 or 10 technologies that you're really strong in, show it on top of your profile anywhere in about session, in the experience, in these skills. Just keep it somewhere visible because that's what hiring managers are looking for.
Amazing. Yeah. So in his case, I think we are done. He has his college courses here as well. Do you think it would be useful to briefly explain what topics he studied in his college course?
If it was something more specific than computer science and system engineering, then yes. But it's something very general, right? And then his experiences already tell us enough that his education wouldn't be like we wouldn't need the description of what he studied in college if we see that he has over 10 years of a hands-on experience and other stuff. It was
Yeah, because
very specific to the industry. Sorry, if he had like, I don't know, done a master's in robotics, or I don't know, anything that is more specific, then I would add a brief description of what he studied there. But if not, there's no need.
yeah, for example, in my case, I just added some bullet points with some major subjects. I don't know if that's the best approach, but
But there's literally no harm in doing that. There's even if you had some amazing grades, let's say you had, I don't know, all fives or whatever, some amazing grades, you can also mention it because some hiring managers, they're looking at the grades of university. I know most of them don't, but still sometimes you will come across someone who cares about grades from university even. So if you had amazing grades, you should mention it. If you didn't have such a great grades, then don't. But there is no harm in mentioning the subjects, but it's not really necessary, to be honest.
If you had great grades or you graduated with honors, those kind of things could be relevant. What you studied there, if it's not something very specific, not irrelevant. No harm in being there, but it doesn't actually like add much.
Yeah.
But other achievements, yes.
Or if it's if you wrote some thesis that you're really passionate about and you would actually like to work in that field, mention the name of the thesis could also be helpful.
yeah. And do you think it would be useful to put a document here showing the grades, for example?
If you had good grades, 100%, you
If you
can.
had good grades, obviously. Otherwise,
Yeah.
just hide it.
Otherwise, don't. Yeah. Like, I mean, you want to present
Also,
yourself in the best way possible. So if you had amazing grades, you should add it. If you didn't, then hide it.
there's
Praise
also
it.
no need to add a document itself. You can just write there.
Yeah, you can just write it down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yeah. That makes sense. So, yeah, for Franco, we are pretty much done.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much, Ivana, for being here and for sharing your expertise with us.
Problem. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye. Perfect. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. And I hope to have you and Ivana here again. And I'm going to leave your LinkedIn profile and Ivana's profile on the description so that whoever wants to contact them, feel free to do that. And that's it. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you so much as well. It's been a pleasure being here. And if you want more tips on how to build your CV or on your LinkedIn, we are always posting things on our LinkedIn page on Stack or Instagram as well. Yeah, if you can add our LinkedIn as well, we post twice a week there. Every Tuesday, we're going to post about some relevant event related to tech, either in Ireland or somewhere in Europe. And then on Thursdays, we do a weekly question that we ask the team. So, for example, this week we did what are the main mistakes candidates make on their CV? It's there, 5 big mistakes people make. And on our Instagram, we're always giving tips for hiring managers and for candidates as well, 3 times a week. So it's nice because then you get to see the hiring manager side, but also the candidate side all there.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.